Okay, well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening. It's Liam Harcher here again today with another episode of the Simply Inspired podcast. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, feeling very blessed, very honored to welcome Walker Higgins. It's a very cool name as well, I got to say. Onto the show today, this man is an ultra marathon runner running the 100-mile distance and further, including the Spartathlon, 153 miles in Greece. A lot of history around that race. We'll talk about that. So, some amazing running achievements. He is also a running coach as well, gives back and contributes a lot to people's lives. Co owner at the Block Fit BR as well. Need to get that in there. The man in charge at WOA Racing Co. Some very cool names here as well. A Christian, a man of faith. And today, as always, we're going to be not only talking about running, yes, we'll be talking about that, but we'll be going deeper into the mindset it takes to reach such a high level in one of the toughest sports in the world, I would say, ultra running. We're going to be talking about faith, we're going to be talking about hope, lots of different, very good topics. So stay tuned, everybody. And Walker, thank you for coming on the show and taking time out of your morning and everything to be here. I'm very grateful. Been looking forward to this for a while, so it's great to have you here today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the invite.
No problem, man. Hopefully, I've done that justice, because you're a man of many talents. So, hopefully, we've given a mention to a few of those. Um, as I mentioned to you just now before starting recording, kicking things off with Spartathlon itself. I mean, I know it's a recent event, this year and everything, and sometimes I start at the beginning with guests and we go back to early life. We'll probably do that as well. But as soon as it's just happened, it's a very exciting story. Can you share with us a little bit about some of your reflections on the race? Now you've had a little bit of time to sort of think back to it, some of your favorite moments, and basically just a story of how that went in its own words. I know that's a big question, but let's start there, please. Thank you.
Um, yes, Spartathlon was just an absolute amazing experience overall. Just a lot of mixed emotions on the reflection process that I've kind of gone through. You know, I went through everything in that race, and just to be able to get to that finish line meant everything. To be there was, is a huge part of the journey. I find just to be able to get to that starting line in this sport, and just getting there relatively injury free, and then tackling the course. It was just a overall a humbling and just a very grateful experience. But the race itself, I showed up in my mind um, in the best shape I've ever been in. So I was very my training could have been a little bit longer with the focus on the race, but the way I felt and the weather that I endured locally in Louisiana training, I just knocked it out the park. So that was a very relieving experience, knowing that everything, injuries had kind of subsided and other stuff like that, and my mileage was really high, and just confidence. Uh, Little tidbit is that when I feel like when I'm in training and I have a regular run, and I have this little switch that will go off in my head, and it just comes out of nowhere. And it's not in all training blocks for races, but I had this switch that was like, oh, I'm going to destroy this race. And so I just, once that happened, it was just like the next 3 weeks of training just went amazing, and really got to Greece in what I felt like was the best shape of my life. Unfortunately, the race didn't necessarily go as planned, but the end result was a lot of, I guess, self discovery, and realizing that that we can endure a lot more than we even think we're capable of, even say ultra runners who've pushed their limits. So I really wanted to quit, probably about 1,000 times. But my story goes that I went to Mykonos 4 days before the race, or 5 days before the race, and that was just to kind of get over jet lag, get through the international travel, and from there I wanted to just kind of relax and maybe sightsee and things like that. 3 days before the race, um, I got a cold, and so not many people know that, because I didn't really. You show up at a race and you just have what you have, and no excuse on the results. It is what it is. But the day before the race, that cold had turned into full congestion, phlegm, green infection, and when I sat down at lunch the day before. Um, it's like that moment where you realize, oh wait, I'm really sick. I had just like no energy, and so then it was just, well, let's see how I sleep tonight and start the race, and um, how that journey transpires. And the journey transpired in a way that my legs just never woke up feeling. I never had energy. I was doing my standard pacing that I had estimated, but it was just every step of the way was a lot of effort. And even 10 miles in, I was feeling like very tired. So not necessarily the way you want to start a 153-mile race, but as we talked before the um, the start of the podcast, is that just trying to lead with gratitude and thanks that um, that God had put me in the place to be able to keep to toe the line and to start, and just to keep moving. And so as an ultra runner, we train ourselves to be able to push through when we don't have energy. And some of my reflection on this race is that maybe that's ill advisable, going into it with a cold on such an event like that. Uh, do I know if I do the same thing again? Unfortunately, maybe I would, just because that's my mindset, is just to push after things. But it's definitely given me some pause and some reflection on trying to compartmentalize, like, what I could do different, or if I could have done anything different. But the race itself, the Spartathlon, is just a magical experience, with the history of Philippides' run from Athens to Sparta. Honestly, I don't think, as Americans, we really give credit to Spartathlon. In America, it's kind of like you hear Badwater, and that's the big deal. And so I realized that from my own thoughts, being exposed to the race and not really hearing about it, but not really entertaining it much, just because you think international travel and all of those sticking points and things that kind of get in the way. But once I realized the really importance of the journey there, and what was behind it, and the history and everything, it really just kind of unfolded to where I felt like I had to get there. And um, I was fortunate. I had an automatic qualifying time from a race I did a few years ago. It was a PR 100 for me that I did at 6 days in the Dome in 13:44, and so that was going to expire this next year. So I figured, okay, when else? I may never run that fast again. I might, but when else am I going to have just an automatic to be able to be at this amazing, magical place and run through the ruins of Greece, and start at the Acropolis and finish at King Leonidas' statue, it really, like, just saying it, I get goosebumps coming up the neck. Everything about Spartathlon is just amazing. It's, you know, some people, maybe they might want the experience of the London Marathon with the thousands of people, and you're never going to really have that at an ultra. But I don't know if there could possibly be a more historic run out there to be a part of. So it really feels like something, more, I don't know, just beyond what else is out there. It was just amazing. And yeah, gratitude, and just the journey was quite amazing.
What a description. I mean, I knew that would be a very good answer, but that was really special. I sort of felt like I was there for a minute as I was listening to you in terms of such a vivid description that brings that to life. Amazing achievement, amazing experience, especially with things not going according to plan right then and there. Very valuable life lesson. Things don't always go according to plan, but it's what we do in those moments. I mean, that's why I do these talks for the life lesson right then and there. That's a very powerful one. Um, but yeah, you are a brave man because with the history, obviously, Philippides, I never say it quite right, but anyway, he actually died, didn't he, at the end of the race, so they say, collapsed in ancient times. So somebody replicating that, hats off to you, brother. That's a not that that's going to happen in the modern age, but wow. One of the other things I wanted to touch on with that, which I was planning to touch on later, but we'll talk about it now because it's very valid. Obviously, the physical training is very important. We will talk about that, but the mental aspect of ultra running is a very important topic. You know, you have to be very mentally tough and resilient to do what you do and everything like that. And I was curious with what you were saying about running that distance with a cold and with things not going according to plan and everything, still being grateful. Is that mental toughness something that you have cultivated over time and developed? Is it something you feel maybe you were born with and it's always been there, maybe a little bit of both? But you have to be, as I've already said, very mentally strong, emotionally strong. You have to have strong faith, as soon as we've mentioned that you can make it through and you will be protected. And whether people run great distances or not, I mean, sure, some runners will learn from this. Whatever people are doing in life, whether you're studying for an exam, starting a business, starting a new job, learning a new language, whatever, you have to have that resilience to stay the course and everything. So basically, I know it's quite a broad topic, but maybe if we narrow it down to a couple of things that you do to cultivate that strength, if you get where I'm going with this one inside of you.
Right. Yeah, I think mental toughness, just to maybe give it a term, would be, I think it can be something you're born with, but I think it also can definitely be something that is cultivated over, long periods of time, and maybe even over short periods of time. Life experiences, tragedy, hardship, struggles, all those things, I think, lead to us being greater than we were previously. You're talking about distance. Distance is so relative, right? Like, does it matter that I ran a race that's 153 miles or someone runs a 10K? Like, to me, it's, yeah, it's what is our challenge for ourselves? And I think in the social media hype world, that we get too caught up on um, what someone else is doing, and like, oh, I've got to do this 100 mile, or I've got to do that. And my focus has never been what some elite out there has achieved. I might see times, but it's really more of a personal, in depth deal with myself and trying to push whatever my limits are. And so going back to the mental toughness of that, I think is just trying to be stronger than you were previously. And, you reach these milestones, whether it's a race or a test, exam, whatever, you try to achieve it, and then you try to maybe do better the next time. We don't always do that too, because we don't always learn the lesson that's in front of us, right? I heard something recently that was really kind of profound, is that we don't learn from our experiences. We learn from reflecting on our experiences. And so, because if we didn't learn from our experiences, we would never repeat our mistakes, right? So, that all of that, I guess, goes back to, again, that mental toughness, and how we develop that. And I think a lot of that is developed by maybe looking at the saying about like comparing ourselves to other people. The comparison game, I don't necessarily find that builds us up any. I think that is just a kind of like a fool's errand that brings us down. Um, we just need to kind of like try to be better ourselves constantly. How do you better yourself? Whether it's, whatever that aspect is of betterment. And because if you're looking at like how you're not good enough, that to me, that frames it in a negative light. And so you have to kind of like really focus on those positive aspects, like what you do best. Obviously, you want to try to improve the things that need improving upon, but I don't necessarily think they need to be the focus, because then that just harps on the negative. So, the mental game, for me, I know some of my life experiences, which we'll probably talk about that later. Those have definitely given me an ability to kind of look past the present. I mean, be in the present, but not let that present moment control the pain of a race, or I'm throwing up at mile 92 or whatever that is going to stay forever, right? It's going to pass. You know, that pain is going to pass, and I can continue on. And so that's that positivity, that light. And I would say that some of that was there from being a kid. I was always active. I just was constant. Soccer, football for you guys. I played hours a day. I did all kind of different sports. I was always going from one sport to another. I'd get home from school after sports 4 hours in a row, and I would just be outside. And so that constant wheel in motion had given me the ability to have endurance, but it didn't necessarily give me the ability to mentally work through the things. And some of my other aspects in life have led to, I think, led to that. And that, say, I don't know if it would be the right term, but a kind of callousing of the mental game to just grind and just push through whatever I'm feeling, or pain, or just knowing that it's going to get better. Some of my influences in my life, or someone like my mom, that she's just an amazing woman, highly respected. A lot of people, anyone that meets her is just like, wow, your mom is just thoroughly impressive. But she's always positive, just pretty much in every aspect. It's just like looking on the positive side of whatever's going on. And that's permeated throughout my family, having someone like that. So, that influence, and, just maybe what I was born with, and then what I've cultivated.
Absolutely. Well, it's very profound because, I mean, the concept of reframing or, how you look at things, from what perspective you're looking at it from, very powerful. The concept of perspective itself, I mean, perspective on life, what you said there about things will pass, it won't always be like this, etc. Very powerful. And as I said earlier, very applicable to all different life areas, So I absolutely love that. And there's all these sayings that people throw around of, where attention goes, energy flows, or whatever. But what you focus on, it does grow, positive or negative. There's the one. Sure, I get this the right way around, but you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, and things like that. And it is true, I mean, it's just different ways of saying it, but it is very, very true. And I like the mental side of it because it's something that people don't see from the outside looking in. They see you running Spartathlon or running all these different races and doing all this wild stuff, but they don't see what's going through your mind, this mile, that mile. So it's very, very good to touch on that. Now, to give people a little bit of perspective on development and everything, when we look at this now, I mean, I know I've started with Spartathlon and I was excited to talk about it because as you say, it's got a lot of history, and maybe because I've moved to Cyprus recently, all the Greek stuff is on my mind or what, I don't know, but it's a good one to start with. But at this point now in 2023, how long have you been running in one form or another? I mean, I'm talking now from the start all the way to ultras in terms of the number of years. How long are we looking at there, please?
Well, I really kind of started just running with a few buds kind of midway through college. I've been someone that in middle school, high school, I played football, soccer, all those kind of sports, but it was never running was never a focus, but I was always pretty good at it. I had the endurance. I was never the fastest kid in the grade or anything like that, but I had endurance to just keep going. And um, so I would say like 2004, maybe 2003, I kind of shifted what I was doing from a workout perspective. At that point, I was um, more focused on getting bigger and muscles, and just wanting to have that beach body per se. And I was getting injured, and I tore my shoulder, and just a few other issues that I had. And so I really tried to kind of reflect on what was best for my shape and my body, and started doing some local 5Ks, and it just kind of started escalating from there. So 19 years as a consistent runner, I guess. And then, that consistency at first was inconsistent. it wasn't, it wasn't like what I've been, say, the last 5, 6 years. And but I would do races and then maybe drop off for a little bit, and then I would pick up and find another one, and eventually that turned into um, a lot more running, a lot more miles, shifting my workouts as opposed to working out with weights 4 to 5 days a week and running 2 to 3. Over time, those things kind of went up and down and changed to really get better at running, and it kind of became my passion more.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's something I love about running and ultra running and everything to do with this is it's very much people are on their own journey. I mean, everyone is in life anyway, but you can have two people running the same race, but they're running for totally different reasons inside of themselves. And really they're running two different races, even if they're physically in the same space, if you get what I mean. And it's something that I find is really profound. And when I speak to people, the ages or the different times people come into it, the different circumstances they come into it for, it varies wildly. And I think that's really cool because it's very authentic, if that makes sense. It's very authentic that, you come into this at the right time for you, develop it at your own pace, you're having success now. I mean, it's a very important lesson because I think a lot of people feel that there's like sort of like a tick list of life of, you do this and you do this and you do this. And obviously, when you meet people, that's not the case anyway. But running as a metaphor for life, especially with ultra runners, I find that just goes out the window. And people do things at all different times, and they develop in a very unique way. If this
Right.
makes sense, and I just think it's cool. That's not a question. I'm just saying. And when we look at the number of, say, the number of ultras, I mean, you've probably done marathons and things. I was reading up on the ultras, and there's all different ones coming up. Do you know how many you've done in terms of anything over, say, over the marathon limit, over 26 miles on an ultra start day, or is it not really something you keep track of?
It's not something I um, keep track of to a precise amount. Just, but to say ultras, I've probably, whether it's in a race or doing, I've done some solidarity ultras that have been amazing experience along the Normandy beaches. I've done that 3 times, and so some other events over the years. So I've probably done, I don't know, 40, 45, something around that range. Which, I've had years where I've done more, and then I've had years where I've done less. And but the ramp up, I would say, really kind of started more like 2017. Then I really started picking up and doing more and more. But my first ultra was 2009.
Mm.
So I've been in the ultra realm for a pretty good while now. And besides ultras, I had a passion for expedition racing, and that was kind of before ultras and adventure racing. And those are races anywhere from probably 5 hours to 10 days. So yeah, it sounds crazy, but they go throughout the night. You might sleep for 2 hours, 1 hour a night, and then you go on to the next night. And um, for all distances there, from the sprint to the multi-day, I've done probably about 70 of those as well over the years, kind of mostly in America, all over kind of the South. But I've kind of ventured off doing those, and I've done some down in the Patagonia mountain range throughout Chile and the Florida area of America. And so, a lot of endurance events over the years, a whole lot. And so much that I've had to, I guess I didn't have to, but I chose to kind of purge a lot of um, the swag over the years, just because it's like, well, why am I holding on to this? It's, I don't necessarily need that, but I have most of my bibs, which is kind of neat. Um, Probably the last 10 years I've kept every bib, and before that I probably forgot a bunch, but I've got a folder stack that is just full of bibs. It's kind of neat to hold on to, something that doesn't take up space, and it just can kind of condense it together. But
Mm.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, it makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate that because when I was researching for this and everything, I mean, I kept finding so many things coming up in different places, and it's I mean, it's something I do. I always check out what people have been doing, obviously, but I mean, in the end, a lot of times I just ask people and say, okay, so how many are we talking about here? Because finding a complete list is tricky, but must be some
Right.
amazing memories. Now, quite a big question here, but something I love to ask people because you never know what's going to come back from this. If you had to narrow that down to basically a handful of favorite ones, the reason I do this, by the way, is I'd love to talk about every race, but we'd be here until next week. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, because people who've accomplished as much as you have, we finished this and we've only scratched the surface. But as long as it's enough to be beneficial to people, then I'm happy. And it's definitely going that way so far. But in terms of condensing it down, the best way I've found your favorites, your proudest moments. Now, just to give this very briefly context as well, it doesn't have to be like something that was like, I don't know, your best time, or something that was
Right.
technically perfect. And, it might just be somewhere you've been that you never would have been if you weren't a runner, that just took your breath away, or it might be something like, well, with Spartathlon, it didn't go according to plan, but from where I'm sitting, it's something to be very proud of because, you pushed through that and made the best of it and everything. So all I'm getting at is it comes in different forms, you know that, but just, so we don't blinker it. But yeah, I mean, which ones really are the ones you look back on the most fondly, please?
Yeah. I'm fortunate that as you were saying that, I was reflecting and thinking about all of the pictures that I had in my head, all of the different milestones and memories. And like you said, there probably my fondest moments aren't necessarily based on the PR or the speed or whatever. It's just the overall experience. But I'm very fortunate in that, I mean, I could probably list 20 top experiences because they all can kind of mean something else. One that is, or that I've been fortunate to take part in 3 years, is called D-Day Trail. And that is along the beaches of Normandy, France. And I was asked to participate in that by a gentleman over there that orchestrates a solidarity run. And we start on one end of the Normandy beaches and we run all five of the beaches that the Allies landed on to their entirety. And um, it's just been an absolutely moving experience. We run past all of the monuments, all of the different barricades that are still in place, that have been left, or the giant cannons that are in place. And we've had, in one of the years, all the monuments, we had ceremonies at each one, with doves flying and torches. And I mean, it's just you know a very, very much an experience I never thought I would have. And so that experience for me kind of comes full circle. My great grandfather is the inventor and the producer of the Higgins boats along the coast of Normandy that landed throughout all the theaters of the war. So his company built a large amount of boats throughout World War II. And so having that, the come together of some of my achievements with ultra running and my family ties and being able to represent the U.S. in that, and just running on those hollow grounds has been, a bucket list experience that now I've gotten to do 3 times, and it's just been very, very moving. The first time I went with my wife. The second time I was able to take my dad, my mom, my aunt, and my daughter. And the third time, both of my brothers came with me. So, I don't know how I can really top that experience overall, it, because everything that goes into it. I'm fortunate enough that I'll be going back this coming year during June to do the run again. Some people don't like to repeat runs, but I will go back until I can't run anymore if they keep asking me. So, and to tell you that event, um, they try to get a runner from every country that was in that fought in that along Normandy, Allies and Axis. So just the running alongside a Frenchman, someone from Germany, someone from England, all of these countries running together, and we just keep the same pace and move along. It is very moving experience. I mean, constant, different monuments, different times, tears, and um, it was amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds incredible. It sounds such a meaningful experience that really transcends just sports and running. I mean, the meaning behind it with a larger sense of history and everything and bringing people together. But, your family being there as well. I mean, that must be very special to share moments like that with your loved ones and everything. I mean, it's something a lot of people do say as well, as it's not always the races, but the people you meet along the way or obviously in this case having your family with you, but the people you share it with, very powerful. See, that's why I love that question, man. You never know which one is
Right.
going to come back, and it's never the one you expect, but it always makes total sense why. But you never know what's going to come back. So I love that. Now, another topic that I often use to sort of condense down so many things, like everything you've achieved, is talking about some of the toughest races and things. And I know we've talked about this a little bit with Spartathlon and the cold, and that's got to be up there. I mean, it might even be number one. But the same thing as I said earlier, nothing about anything that went wrong. I don't look at it from that point of view. You said earlier about words to the effect there was a lot of self-discovery and things in Spartathlon and a lot of lessons learned or words to that effect. And that's the reason I ask this question. It's nothing to do with hardships and things. It's to do with when you're running a race, you overcome a challenge, you overcome something that goes wrong, things you discover about yourself, whether that or some change that's, unexpected or whatever. Um, these types of things, and but then in the sense of how it becomes a positive in the end, if you get what I mean, even though it might not seem like it in that moment, also feeds back into your perspective topic. This moment won't last forever. So it feeds into a couple of things. I like to go deeper into that. Which are some of the ones where you had to? I mean, ultra running is tough, right? I mean, it's always every race. I don't think there's any easy races, but the ones where you really had to push through it and you got to the other side and you think, wow, okay, that was beyond my expectations. Besides the Spartathlon and the cold and everything, are there any others like that that really stand out to you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm definitely someone that every race I'm going to push every bit out of myself. So I typically don't leave a race feeling very feeling very good. But the ones that are kind of top the list would be, Spartathlon is up there, and then Badwater, 135 in Death Valley. That's one, and then a littler known race, but equally challenging, is called Wildcat 100, and that race is in Pensacola, Florida. I'll talk about that one a little bit because it's less known. But so that race is about a 2 to 2.5 mile loop race at an equestrian center. A lot of trees, but then also a lot of open area. So there's probably 85%. I think I calculated when I was researching is covered in. I mean, without cover. And you're doing multiple loops along this set course, and it's a 100 miler, and so that is in September every year. It's probably been going on 8 years or so, and I ran that race in 2020, and it was 98 degrees and I think about 99% humidity, and it's inland about 5 miles. So on that day, I know that the temperature was estimated, the heat index was 118 on the coast, and inland, there was no airflow, no breeze. It was it was a bloodbath. And uh, I started off really fast. I started off for that heat at about a 7:45 pace, and I just constantly kept having a high heart rate. And at first, I thought it was my watch was kind of glitching, so I just kept the pace. And then I realized it wasn't my watch, and I mean, stupid decision, but I was like, well, I'm just going to keep pushing it and see how long I can maintain. And by 20 miles into that race, I felt like I had done a 20-mile speed work day where I would just be absolutely destroyed. I had no energy. And I had 80 miles to go. So, um, one of my things that I've been able to maintain to this point is I've never DNF'd. And I really did not want to DNF that day. And I also had a 45-minute lead 20 miles into the race because I just went out so fast, or something around there, 40 minutes or something. And so I just lay down at my crew tent for a minute, and my crew was all worried. They're like, you can't lay down. And I just told them, I said, and this might have been about 30 miles in. I said, I don't think you understand. Like, I realize now what I did was running at that heart rate. I just completely wiped all my glycogen stores. And so I was moving basically like a zombie is how I felt. Um, and it just required that constant grind for another 80 miles. And I ended up my lead, because we're on that loop course, my crew kept telling me what my lead was, and it was dwindling down and down and down until at about 75 miles, the other racers, I think, kind of felt like now's their opportunity. They need to surge. So I tried to counter that, and I was feeling better by that time because it was, probably 10 hours later. And, but recovering in an ultra is not an easy thing to do. And so I kind of countered their push, but they were still making up ground on me. Um, and I think my lead got down at about 80 miles down to 20 minutes. Then a few miles later, it was down to 15 minutes, 12 minutes. And so it just kept getting lower and lower. And halfway through my second to last lap, we were in the woods, and we had actually, I had pulled over, tried to go to the bathroom in the woods, and my my pacer got a call, and he said, "We can't stop. You can't stop again. I just got a call that the second place is 2 minutes behind you." And so, and I looked at my friend and I said, the only way this guy is going to beat me if he kills me. And so I just surged, and we put in a good last, say 3 miles or whatever, and was able to finish out that race. And it was a pretty rough recovery. Now knowing what I went through at Spartathlon, which I didn't say this earlier, but I actually was hospitalized for a day and a half after Spartathlon. I ended up getting horrible rhabdomyolysis, where my creatine kinase levels, basically my muscle proteins, were breaking down at such a rate that your kidneys start to not be able to process. The experiences I had at Spartathlon were the same as what I had at Wildcat. And to be a little graphic, the smell from my urine was such a high kind of meat smell. I mean, it's kind of gross, but it's maybe something that will benefit someone as a runner. That it was something I hadn't really experienced before. And I right when I smelled that during Spartathlon, I remembered the same smell after or during Wildcat. Wildcat, I didn't go to the hospital, although I probably should have, because I wore out all my glycogen stores. It's honestly kind of a similar parallel to Spartathlon. Showing up sick and not having anything, or wearing out all my glycogen stores and not having anything, but then pushing that 80 miles or 130 miles like I did through Spartathlon extra after just being wiped out. Um, Developing that ability to push is great, but I think as ultra runners, maybe we sometimes don't know when to stop. So that's the lesson I was talking about earlier, is trying to um, decipher if I can hear that in the future, hear that lesson. But so Wildcat ended up, I had a rough recovery, and some of that experience was pretty rough on my crew. Watching me, I was kind of um, somewhat convulsing after, and but I just figured I needed sleep, and um, needed to drink water and get some fluids in me, and ended up being okay the next day. Spartathlon was a little more dramatic in that I couldn't stop throwing up, and I couldn't keep anything down, not even a sip of water. And so I basically had to get out of bed and call my crew and get taken to the hospital in Sparta. So that kind of went off on two different tangents, but they're kind of similar. So they felt appropriate.
Absolutely appropriate. Yeah, I mean, incredible stories. Obviously, it shows well, it shows just how tough you have to be. I mean, well, you were made of steel or something. I mean, there's something going on there. But the thing is, as I said earlier, the lessons about when things don't go to plan. Often when I talk to people about this stuff, there's just as many that come from that, if not more, than when something goes perfectly to plan and everything. So very valuable to mention that again, from the life perspective. Um, the concepts of limits come into that. I mean, a lot of limits are in our minds. Most of them are not real, but there are certain things in the body. So there's a lot of different topics. I'll come back to something there in a minute. Before I do, just a sort of brief technical one. When it comes to running in extreme heat, as you have, like that moment, the humidity and everything with Wildcat and with Spartathlon, it's hot and obviously Badwater. I've spoken to a few finishers and everything, and Harvey Lewis actually, I think's won that, at different times and everything. But anyway, the heat and the elevation and everything, comparably, which one is actually the most extreme temperature that you've run at out of those?
Um, Temperature, I would say that Badwater itself, the temperature is obviously the highest, the hottest place in the world. And with that extreme heat, um, if you become just the slightest dehydrated, within 10 minutes, you could be out the race.
Mm.
So it's a razor thin line out there from what I've raced it once and then crewed it a few times. So experiencing that heat escalates all issues at a much faster rate. Um, the ability to stay cool, I would say, honestly, is easier at Badwater than training in Louisiana on the hottest days of the year, or say like that Florida race. And the reason that I would go in that direction is, and now that's on the hottest day. That's like a 100-degree day, high humidity, like 90% plus humidity. And the reason for that is that um, you're not able, you essentially get like this wall of water on your body, and you can't shed off the heat. You're just kind of cooking in it. And so you can't wear arm sleeves and soak them down because they're just going to keep heat on you. Um, it's just, yeah, it just doesn't, you don't dissipate that heat. You don't have that cooling effect on how we're made with all of our pores. And so for me, I find that probably a little bit more challenging, or I mean, I don't want to say it's more challenging than Badwater, but it's just a different perspective. It's just as hard, but maybe Badwater is hotter, you know. So, and
Yeah.
then you have the mountains of Badwater and things like that that go into play. So, um,
Yeah, the elevation is extreme. I know, but it's something that's very interesting. That was in the back of my mind actually, with where you're from and everything. It is, from what I understand, hot and humid. I mean, I've never been to Louisiana. It's on my list, mind you. Definitely on my list to visit seriously, because there's some places I want to visit there. I'll get into that another time. But anyway, that was in the back of my mind, and very interesting, just from a very practical perspective on the heat and everything. Obviously, your training in terms of like your weekly runs and everything like that needs to be touched on here, because it occurred to me earlier on when I was saying, okay, how many ultras have you run and everything. Sometimes I speak to people and they, obviously, they run that in training. They run those sorts of distances, even in unofficial times and everything. So getting into like a bit of your regime, behind the scenes of an ultra runner, all that type of thing is cool. But there's another aspect to that as well, which I think will benefit people when they're chasing a dream or a goal, and that's the concept of time management. Because with what you do, like you mentioned, well, I mentioned earlier, you've got other businesses, you've got a family, you've got other things to do, and not prying into anything personal, but I'm just curious how you manage your training, because one of the things a lot of people say, running or something else, they want to work towards a dream and they say, oh yeah, but I don't have time for that. And it's not so much don't have time, it's whether or not you make time. And one of the things I can sort of envision with you is you must have to really um, make time, or maybe now it's easier, but over time you've had to sort of build that into your life, over the timeline that you've been running. So let's start with the basics of, how much you run a week, and, a few numbers there, and then we can maybe move into how you fit it all in, basically, which I think is, I mean, you're used to it, but I think it'll be very inspiring for people to learn that, if that makes sense.
right, definitely. Um, so for me, I think it's important to say this is that the motivation to work out and run has never really been a problem. It's something that it's why I have made a career out of it, because I love it. I love working out. I love running. That doesn't mean I always want to do it. I mean, there's plenty of runs that I just do not feel like doing, but I make myself get out there and do them. So the time management is a challenge, and I'll say in that I typically don't struggle with time management on running or working out, because those are my favorite things to do, so I make them happen. But sometimes I'm not always good at getting the task done that I need to do for my businesses, run coaching, all those type things. So it is a huge challenge, and then making sure that family's taken care of, all those different things, or a constant challenge, and it requires juggling and flexibility, and being nimble and deciding that, oh, I have an hour now, I'm going to just get on this workout, or I'm going to um, you know move my I sometimes, I mean, there's some nights where I've finished up work and it's 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I'll go do a 15-20 miler, but I'm not finishing until 1 a.m. Um, and most people don't really want to do that. It can be kind of crazy. But I've started some unintentional night runs, and at start I'm just, oh, just yawning, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got 20 miles to go, and I'm already yawning. So it's a challenge. My weekly mileage and um, time on my feet. I've always kind of looked at it from a mileage perspective. There's different rules of thumb and different ways that coaches and people do that. For me, I like looking at the mileage part. I don't let the miles dictate me as much as I used to. I used to have like a hard number and made sure I met it every week, but I've found some power and peace in feeling like that I've gotten to that number and I don't need to do 1 or 2 more miles. I'm there. So the weekly, I probably run between 10 and 15 hours a week, which when you start to do that, if you can break that down and compartmentalize it day to day, it's not that big or as big. I lift weights and work out 2 to 3 days a week as well, and those are probably an hour each time. And then I do some different, when I'm in heavy training, I do some different recovery modalities um, at a place called the Covery in Baton Rouge, where we do red light therapy and cryo sessions and things like that. And then also I have at my gym, I have a infrared sauna, and in heavy training, I'm doing that for probably um, 4 sessions a week, and that's between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how long I stay in. And so all of those things I've found add to helping me um, become a better runner, but recover faster, and just all the avenues of it. So, um, and then I also make sure that I was touched on the fact of like not letting the miles control me, and I find that a lot of runners or athletes are want to hit this certain milestone, um, and it could be totally at the detriment of their training or their race coming up or whatever it is. So you really have to be really cognizant of what your body's doing, and if you're tired, or if you know you have an extreme stress in whatever situation it is, through work, family life, tragedy, whatever. So you have to kind of monitor all those things, and let those kind of be a part of, how much you can really train effectively. So,
Yeah, well, it's a great breakdown of, well, as I've said, the time management, the structure, but also the aspects of finding things that work for you personally as well. I mean, as I said earlier, there's always certain principles with this that are perhaps very universal, but there's also elements of people finding what works for them and knowing your body, being in tune with yourself and things of that nature, which comes at me from what you were saying there as well. Now, a couple of other things. As we move into the latter phase of this, obviously, we'll talk about your future plans. We'll talk about a couple of other things. But before we get there, obviously talking about your coaching, talking about your other businesses, they deserve a mention. Some of the other life areas that you have that you feel comfortable talking about, they deserve a mention. Excuse me, they deserve a mention as well. So, you're running coaching, and some of the other things you do, because as you just said, I mean, you make a living and a lifestyle out of what you love to do. You also give back and contribute to people's lives, I think, which is a um, very high aspiration in my book, to aim for. So, can you share with us a little bit about your life outside of running, with your other businesses and things? Because I know obviously we're doing the interview mainly about running, but obviously you're a complete person and there's other aspects to you than just being a runner. So I think mentioning like the race directing, the coaching, or some of these other types of things would be very cool, please.
right. Yes. I might have missed part of that because the screen kind of froze for a second, but I think I got the aspect you want me to go in. So, um, yes, currently I'm this last year I kind of took a hiatus from race directing, but I had previously been hosting races from 2010 through the end of 2012. I mean, end of 22. So about 12 to 13 years, and I had probably hosted oh, I don't know, 150, 200 races. Everything from a 1 mile. Oh, I'll correct that. I did put on a 1 mile track race this year. And that was really an awesome experience. It was the first track event I had put on. And it was really just kind of like an all comers, like it's not common in Louisiana. So it's like, come see how fast you can do a true mile. So I did put on one event this year, but um, all my other events I kind of just let them kind of sit for a year, and I'm going to bring some back this coming year. But I've hosted everything from a 1 mile event all the way up to a 135-mile race. So I've kind of done it all. I've also was in the paddleboarding industry, like stand-up paddleboarding, and I used to host a lot of stand-up paddleboarding races. Um, and so the whole race directing side is it's an absolute ton of work, but it's an absolute blast, and really you get a lot out of it because you really understand, kind of like we were saying earlier about like everyone has their own race. Not everyone's going to do ultras. Not everyone's going to do whatever distance, and that's fine. Um, some people are going to really, their goal is to really go after a 10-mile trail race, and seeing them get that finish line and get that finish and just what that gives to them, realizing they can do, whatever hard thing that is. And so really got a lot out of hosting those events over the years. And then the community development that you get out of it, and the friends and all of that is really, really nice. So I look forward to getting back into that this next year. Um, Besides that, I'm a personal trainer, and so I've done that since 2003, actually. And after a few years, I started run coaching once I kind of got into running more myself. And then a few years later, I started run coaching. And that's been really neat. Uh, and going really in the direction of ultra running, primarily because that was kind of my focus. It's been really awesome seeing clients achieve their goals and working with them week to week and giving them their plans, and really just kind of finding what it is that motivates everyone, and seeing them reach their goals or not, and seeing how they rebound from those struggles. And um, it's been a blessing. I've worked with um, you know 50K runners to 100 milers to kids aspiring to go run track in college or make Division I teams, and so it's been a lot of fun. That kind of coach student say relationship is really neat. And I've never been someone that I get contacted over the years by other runners asking, well, hey, do you mind sharing your secrets with me? And I'm like, well, they're not secrets. Like, why would I, whatever I've learned, why would I keep that for me? I want to, I believe in growing together and building up. Now, yeah, maybe some things I've made as, I guess you could say I've monetized it, but I, I also love talking running, and I love talking endurance sports. So I really want to just help people achieve whatever goals they're trying to achieve, and share some of the things that I've done and I've found that they've worked over the years, or what I've learned in coaching and stuff. So um, you know, and then having my business, the Block Fit, the gym. We have a lot of different athletes, or I mean, we're all athletes. So I kind of hate that term, because it's like, well, what defines an athlete, right? Like, we're all athletic. We all have bodies. We're athletes. So I have all types at my gym, and watching them challenge themselves and push themselves in workouts that we put on our daily board. And that's another really nice thing that we've developed. And our kind of we our gym is situated on some sides of neighborhoods and kind of a little shopping center. So we kind of have a real neighborhood experience to our gym, and so it's nice to be able to have that. So,
Absolutely. Well, amazing again. I mean, as I've already said, the way that you contribute to people, what you said there about, not keeping the knowledge in, but spreading it sort of around and everything. I mean, it's a very powerful thing. And even with this talk today, some people will pick up on some of those lessons, even if they don't meet you. I mean, I hope they do meet you, but either way, it can filter on down and, reach them. So, good to give that a mention. So the last couple of things, and then we'll wrap this up because it'll be a good length then for people to focus on and not be too much. But when it comes to running, I mean, we've very much talked about it from the running point of view of your development as a runner and all this type of thing. But how has being a runner at the level you are at affected other areas of your life? So, in other words, like I said earlier, we're going along and very much talking about you as a runner, but you're multifaceted and everything, as as people are. We all are to some degree. I mean that as a compliment, but I'm curious as to how you're running and the discipline and some of these things then feed back into other things, like with your business, like with your your family or anything you feel comfortable sharing about, because even though it goes one way, it goes back another way because obviously it's a whole life, if that makes sense. So I think that's good to touch on as well.
right, right, yeah, it's definitely um, it, it's made me realize in the different avenues of life that, like we are saying, with the challenges, life is not easy. Relationships are not easy. Raising kids is not always easy. And, dancing those dynamics or a challenge, but you realize that you can be challenged and still have a good day, or you can, one thing can go wrong and your whole being does not have to be derailed. And so trying to stay in the present is something that I think is kind of that I've gotten from running. And someone might say, well, if your present sucks, like why do you want to stay there? Like if your present situation, but it's like also like you you have to be mentally nimble to realize, like, yeah, you stay in the present, but you also have to realize that that present struggle is going to pass. And not just to talk about struggles, because there's other benefits that I've gained out of being a runner and an endurance athlete. But it's definitely given me better perspective, I would say, is one of the major things to realize. And I didn't really get into this, but one of the other avenues that perils that is that I've been sober a long time, and so that perspective that I've gotten from that, with realizing that the hard things are going to pass, and that I can do hard things, and I can um, maybe be wronged in some avenue and not react to it, or um, and that could be big or minor, or kids say something, or trying to just be at peace with whatever situation is and move forward. And by saying those things and sounding wise doesn't mean I'm always on top of my emotions and everything else. I think the other thing that I've also realized through running is that um, that we make mistakes and that we have to give ourselves a lot of grace and understanding, and just be able to, not necessarily hold ourselves down because we, did something wrong. And that can be as wrong as like, oh, I forgot to take a gel at mile 50. And so now I'm in a really bad position. But you could say, oh, I said this in a relationship, and next time I need to be better. So just kind of looking at what those parallels are in life and running and um, everything else. So
Yeah. It's powerful. I mean, this is why I'm sharing or trying to share the complete picture and everything, of your life as a human being, not just as a runner, because it's very valuable, and I appreciate you sharing that aspect of it. Last couple of things, and we'll wrap this up then for, as I say, for time. One of the things I feel we need to mention as well, we focus very much on you and your achievements, but no one does these things alone. So you mentioned crew, you mentioned your family earlier on and how they've helped you in terms of your parents, but also your family now. Basically, I'd like to get a mention for people who've helped you in some way along the way. And I know it's going to be a long list, and it's difficult because when you highlight this, you don't want to focus on some people and leave other people out. So I know it can open up into quite a big topic, but I feel with you that there's definitely, people who've helped you along the way, people who've helped you maybe when they're not expecting anything back, or whatever, this type of thing. I get that vibe. And I wondered if there's any of those that you'd like to give a mention to. So we'll talk about that, talk about your future plans, and then that's everything. But in terms of the thank you aspect, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention to with that? Or maybe there's too many, I don't know.
yeah, no, there is a very long list, and much thanks to everyone over the years, without missing out. Thank you for all your help, for all those who have supported me. Because whether that support is attending an event or a friend texting me. I mean, I have a friend, Brent Graham, in Louisiana, that he's always been like just a huge supporter and fan. And we don't talk for a year. Like I'll do some race and he'll text me, "Hey, good job." And I mean, that's just, the nicest thing, like the just a way of support. And, we don't realize how much those messages can mean, to people. So all the people over the years, thank you. But recently, I met a gentleman at Badwater, and he told me he wanted to crew me at Spartathlon. It's a guy, Alan Anderson from the UK. So for you, and he told me that within an hour of meeting him, that he wanted to crew, and he was completely selfless. He showed up and was just ready to support. And those are the kind of the things that like you said, unexpected. I had another gentleman from Louisiana, David Rosa, that came, and it wasn't as unexpected because he had planned on him being there and such. But the the amount that crew and family and friends do to assist you can be monumental, to your success, to finishing or getting to the start line. And that even goes down as to who might someone that might do a 105-mile run with you on a Wednesday morning. All those things lead to your success. And as I've gotten older, I've found that I I've always had a giant friend group, and I still have all those friends, but you start to kind of zone in on the ones that are kind of on your track record, or not track record, but like on the same track as you, and maybe going for the same things that you are. And I find that helps to kind of narrow your focus. And I've just are really blessed with the circle I have, and how much it's expanding as well. You know, by doing some of these international races, you just end up, you know, um, getting neat connections. Like, talking with you is just a blessing, and all of the just unique relationships. My wife for years crewed me, and that was, always an amazing experience. And most of the time harder on her than it was on me, because it's just, that emotional experience of watching someone push themselves as hard as they can. Um, it can be really tough on people. So, you know, much thanks for all of those people.
Absolutely. Well, beautiful description again, and it's something very important to touch on because no one's an island at the end of the day. I mean, we all need those are the contributions. Who you surround yourself with is a very important lesson. It's a very important topic that comes up frequently. It's often something that people have to change in order to get to where they want to be, or more importantly, become who they want to be. So it's a very valuable lesson. And I think pretty much the last topic, because we've talked about a lot, and as I say, condensing it down is the hardest part of doing what I do, but it's fun as well. But I mean, your future plans, broadly speaking, in terms of particular races that maybe you're aiming for, maybe, or certain things with your business, with your coaching. I don't mind really where we go, but it's just the fact that, as you said right at the beginning, being better than you were yesterday, continually improving upon yourself. This type of concept is something, it doesn't really end. I mean, it's always there. So, and that's the joy of the journey. So, in terms of things that are lighting your fire, as they say, from this point forward, I don't mind how far ahead in time we go or whatever. That's up to you. But some goals that you have from here that you'd like to share with us, please, would be fantastic.
Yeah. I love the process of goal setting. I do that typically pretty far out from races. And my real focus in this next year is, honestly, the thought is to be a better dad. That's, been a goal of mine these last couple of years, and I feel like I'm starting to be the father that I've wanted to be. So that's been pretty nice. And then the other focus is just to really try to be more focused. The focus is to be more focused on my business, and growing the block, and doing the day-to-day things um, that I don't want to do to make it successful. Like I said, it's easy for me to go all in and focus on running. I can kind of just go tunnel vision and lose business focus and lose other things like that. So the hard part for me is to focus on um, the thing that brings livelihood, which is kind of backwards, but I think that's just how my brain is wired, because I just thrive on that endorphins of working out or running. Um, so those are the kind of two main goals. The other goal that I have, that I've thought about for a few years, is to go after the American 100-mile 40-plus-year-old record. So I've recently kind of started speaking it and letting it out there, and sometimes goals don't happen, but I'm going to go all in on this one. And it was set, I think, in 2012 by Mike Morton, who's just an absolute legend in the American ultra running scene. He ran a 13, 11, and 42nd 100-mile. So it's, about 30 something minutes faster than my fastest 100. But I feel like I feel like I still have potential to get better. And so I think that's doable with a fast, proper race. I think it can come into focus. So just trying to find the right course right now is, I don't necessarily have the course picked out, but I have a few that are out there in the next 6 months to a year. And so those are kind of the three things, you know, being the best father I can be, being a better businessman, business owner, and the 100-mile record. So it's nervous to say that, but it's also an exciting thing to think it could be possible for all three things, you know. And you know, for me, in this last 6 months, I've been trying to um, really acknowledge what I do wrong, but not harp on that. It's just seeing how I can be better at, you know, what can I be better at, and so that's those are the things that I think I need to improve upon.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, some very, very worthy goals there. As well, I was thinking that when you said about the record-setting one, yeah, brave to put it out there, but that's the best way. Speaking out there, continue to work on it, train on it well. Speaking out, I mean, you know how this goes, and you'll get there. But yeah, I mean, the business, fatherhood, very worthy. Goals. I appreciate you being an open book on that. And as we wrap up this interview today, I mean, I appreciate you being an open book about all of it. To be honest with you, I mean, as I sometimes say to people, I went into this with the aim of, you know, getting some fun stories from your races. Okay, we've got that, and getting some life lessons. Okay, we've got that, and then some. You know, and like I said earlier, I mean, it's something that condensing it down. You know, we only scratch the surface in some ways, but there's a lot of content here that will help and benefit people as why I do these. So yeah, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your morning, and more importantly, you know, sharing everything you've shared so openly and giving so much of yourself to our audience. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of it. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely, I have as well. I'll let you go because you've got things to do with your day, and I've got to have my dinner this evening because it's our evening over here. But I'm just going to take a quick photo of us so I can post it and say that the interview's coming soon, if that's okay with you.
Of
I'll do
course.
that, and then hold on, let me maybe a bit further back. That's better. Okay, there we go. Lovely. So that's that sorted. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. My best wishes to you and your family as well. When I release this, I will send it to you as well. If you could reshare it, I'd be super grateful for that. Just it all helps the reach. And other than that, keep in touch. I look forward to following your future progress with races and with your business and everything, man. The future is very bright, you know.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So reach out anytime if you want to do another one or just a message. So it was nice.
Absolutely, I will do. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.